Started. So I'm just going to take a song that we worked on the other day with Billy Sheehan called Bitter Reaction, a song by a guy called Mark Lothman. And I'm just going to take a guitar part here, and we're just going to look at the different things that you can do, with automation in Pro Tools. Okay. All right. So here I have a trashy Pete Townsend guitar. Let's have a listen to it in context. I'll give it a little bit pre-roll. So all it is this. Just a trashy kind of guitar that adds some chaos to the beginning of it there. Okay, so let's do a couple of things. Let's try some volume automation. So if you see here where I'm hovering over, see the track is highlighted. If you go underneath, it says waveform, and there's a little triangle here to the right-hand side. Click on the triangle, and you see there are all our different options. There's volume, volume trim, mute, and pan. Those are all of our automations. The first one, volume, is where we're going to go to first. I'll explain what volume trim is in a moment. Okay, so let's go to the volume here, and we're in grid at the moment, and if you go up to the top here, you'll see grid, and we're set to 8th notes. So let's just do a trem, a volume ride on it. So what we could do is we could pull it down like this. So what I did, I'll do it slowly. What I'm doing here is I'm highlighting a grid section like that, and then going to my second tool here. If you look up here, go to my second tool. Okay, there's multiple ways to get to the trim tool. See here we've got the zoomer tool. Here's the trimmer tool. So to get to there, let's take it off there for a second. There's a selector tool. You can go, the old school way was to go Command 2. Let's go back to this. You can now do it by hitting F6, and that will toggle through the tools, F6, F7, and F8 for the grabber. So let's go back to F6. So that's your quick keys. There's also a all-in-one tool, which I don't personally use, but you can use to get through all three. If you push any two of 6, 7, and 8 together, like this, they link. So that's pushing, say, what I did here is do 6 and 7. They now link, and you see, depending on see if I move my tool up high, it goes to the trim tool. If I go down low, it goes where I can highlight it like this, go up high again, and then I can pull it down. So that's the Smart tool. I'm going to go out of the Smart tool because that's not what I usually use. Let's undo it. Okay, so once again, I'm going to highlight a nice 8th note area. I'm then going to go to my trim tool and pull it down. And you see I've now gone on off. Now I can highlight a quarter note, and if I do Option R, I can do like 23, and that's a repeat function. Option R is repeat. Hit OK with 23, and you see it's repeated it. Now the only thing with that, it will be a very hard on and off on the volume. Let's have a listen. Just kind of cool. It's very Pete Townsend. Sounds like he's moving between on-off pickups. Let's hear it in the track. It's kind of cool. To be honest, in 8th notes, it's not as effective. So what we could do is I'm hitting the Z button here for undo. Go up to our grid. Let's go to 16th notes. And let's just take the same thing, highlighting a 16th note, pull that down. And then I'm highlighting an 8th note's worth of information. And I'm going to hit Option R. Still 23. Need a little bit more. Or we can just do Option R and go 1. And it will just repeat what we just did. Let's have a listen to that. So it's kind of cool. It's very Pete Townsend. It's a little harsh for me. So why don't we try something else? Let's take a 16th note, pull it down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my grabber tool. So my grabber tool's up here. You can hit F8 to get to it. And then you see I'm going to hit here, and I'm just going to click on it with the Option tool. I'll undo that so you can see it again. I'm hitting Z. So I'm holding down Option on my left hand. See a little minus sign comes up, and then I'm clicking on it, and it undoes that point. Now what I've got is a nice, much softer on-off. So what I'm going to do on the other side is I'm going to click here, and I'm going to pull this down like that. See what I did? So I click just on the other side, I'm grabbing it, and I'm pulling it down with the grabber tool. Okay, so now what I have is a much softer version of a volume ride. I'm zooming out. I'm using the R button to zoom out. That's the R button, using quick keys. Making sure quick keys is enabled by hitting the A to Z button here. So enable quick keys with the A to Z button. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight that section, and I'm going to do Option R again. And let's do 23 again, just for schnitz and schniggles. Let's solo this and have a listen. It's kind of cool. Now, if I highlight this area here, I can just do Option R, 1. Great. It's given us a little piece here, so let's get rid of that. So if you've got like a little bit of automation that's written accidentally like this, what you can do is you can get your grabber tool again and just click on it with the Option for the minus, and it disappears. All right, so let's go through all of that one more time just so it's sunk in. Okay, so for volume automation, what I've done is I'm in 16th note. I'm highlighting a section. So I'm clicking using this tool up here, which is our selector tool. We can get to our selector tool by hitting F7, by hitting Command 3, or just by simply clicking on it here. Or you can hit F6 or F7 or F7 or F8, any pair of the F through 8, and get to the Smart tool. So if I'm in the Smart tool, I can now highlight. See up there, it's a trim. But if I go down, it's a selector tool. I'm clicking and I'm dragging across. So I'm clicking and dragging across. Now I've highlighted that section. I've moved the cursor up. Now it's turned into the trim tool. Now I'm dragging it down. Now I'm going low down here, and it's turned into the grabber tool. Now I'm hitting Option, and you see it, just a little minus sign came up, and I'm going to click on that little automation point that you see here, and boom, off it goes. Okay, so now to get to the grabber tool, I'm holding Command. This is in the Smart tool, remember, we're in the Smart tool. I'm going to hit on there, and it's put in a point. Now with the command, I'm going to grab it and pull it down. Great. So now highlighting that section, now I'm highlighting an 8th note, 2 16th notes in a row. I'm highlighting it, and I'm hitting Option R. And I'm going to make that 40 just to be safe. Hit OK. And now we have volume automation. So let's quickly hear it in the track. Now, okay, it sounds good. It's not as loud as I want it because there's only a small peak here now. So how do we get around that? So if you're in HD, you have the luxury of HD, you've got volume trim. So you could go to volume trim and then select the whole thing like this, highlight it, and then turn the whole thing up. Let's bring it up like nearly 3 dB. So that's in HD. There's a million different things we can do if we're not in HD. We could go and grab, say, a gain control under Other here, the trim control under Other. Great. Okay, so that's basic volume automation. Let's get rid of that for a second. And now let's try some panning. Okay, we'll go back into solo. We go back to here. We're now going to go to our pan control here. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm highlighting a section in the 16th note like that. I'm getting my trim tool, I'm pulling it down. I'm going to get the grabber tool on this side here and pull it up. And let's have a listen to this. So Option R again, 40 is good. And now we've got some panning. That's pretty insane. Okay, so that's kind of silly. That's a hard left, hard right pan. Okay, so it's cool. It's probably going to be quite silly in the tracks. Have a listen. I probably wouldn't use that, but it's kind of fun. It takes the guitar and makes it sound almost like a keyboard. Okay, so that's one thing you could do. Okay, let's be a little bit more gentle. So I'm undoing this with the Z button. So let's try taking eighth note sections. So I've highlighted an eighth note here and pull that down. And then let's pull this eighth note up here. And let's just try this. So what we're going to do is something a lot more gentle. I'm going to my option button here. I'm on the grabber tool and I'm clicking there. I'm going to take my grabber tool here and pull this down here. And now I've highlighted that whole section. Now I'm going to do the same thing. 20 will be enough. And now we've got a much softer pan going on. Which is probably a lot more in keeping with the guitar parts. Have a listen. Cool. So there's your basic pan automation. You could combine that with volume automation as well, but that would probably be a little nutty. But there you go. That's pan automation, volume automation. Now the mute automation, I honestly very rarely use because I don't look at my waveforms in automation. I look at them like this. You see where I'm highlighting here? This is how I look at my waveforms. I don't look at them with the automation on. And the problem I find with using mute automation is I might not know it's on. I might accidentally be left on from a previous mix. But if you did want to automate your mutes, it's exactly the same thing. You highlight a section like this, you take a trimmer tool, and it's muted. So you'll get this. We could take a bigger section to illustrate. You see what it's doing? It's turning the mute on and off. I don't like it. I don't like to use it. I mean, I'm sure there's instances where you might need it, but I personally never use it. And I get a little frustrated when I open up a mix of somebody else's stuff and I don't know, but there's all these different mute automations going on. It's much easier, personally, to just do this. Let's go back to waveform, like this. If we really wanted to mute something, highlight it here. I do this, I do copy paste on itself, so I'll do C, V. See what it's done, it's separated it out. And then I'll hit Command, M, and I muted it. So if I just wanted to mute, I'd rather do it like this because most of the time, 99% of the time, we're working in waveforms view, so we can see the form. So that way I know there is a mute going on. And if I don't want it, I can just highlight it, I can hit Apple, H, and I can heal it. So I much rather have it visually available to me while I'm mixing, using waveforms than using mute as an automation point. I think if I was doing, I know why people would want to do that. I think post-production guys, when they're doing a lot of mixing of different voices with music, are probably the opposite. They're almost entirely in automation. In fact, I know they are. I have friends that are production sound guys. So what they will do is they'll have like 2 or 3 pieces of dialogue going on and music, and they're actually viewing everything in automation. They don't compress vocals to get them louder. They literally just turn them up. So they automate all of the speech and the music and everything. So they'll probably use it like that. But for us in rock and roll, maybe there's a couple of instances it makes sense, but for me, I don't personally like it. If I'm going to mute something, I grey it out and I mute it, and then I can tell it's muted and it's not a surprise. The track doesn't just suddenly mute in the middle of the lead vocal, which has happened to me before when I've received other mixes. Okay, so that's all the basic stuff there. Now, if you'll notice, we're entirely in grid. Now, grid is available up here. There's relative grid and grid. The difference between grid and relative grid, this is absolute grid and relative grid. Relative grid is literally if I take a piece at random and I want to preserve the feel. I'm just going to talk about this briefly. Here's Billy Sheehan's bass line. Let's have a listen. Let's go back. Here's this great bass line. I don't need to change it, but let's just say I wanted to. Now, I can obviously, if I want to copy this one and put it over here, I could just literally highlight it in grid like this and copy it over here. You say that's pretty simple, and that is a way to do it. Let's go to slip up here, which is a non-grid mode. And if I highlighted a section here, see it's not on a grid. If I go to relative grid, I can take that piece. See if I get my grabber tool. See here, it's got the cut tool. Now if I cut it, I'm holding down Option and cutting it, and I'm moving it. See what it's doing? It's staying relative to the grid every single place I move it. Does that make sense? So basically, I see it just clicks. It's literally just snapping. So it doesn't have to be exactly on a grid mark. It can be behind. It can be in front. It could be a little bit of a vocal phrase you want to move around. If you're in relative grid and not absolute grid, you can just swing it and put it over here, and it will stay. It will maintain its relationship. So that's what relative grid is good for. It's good for literally dragging and dropping things, moving them around. You don't have to cut to a grid point. You can edit exactly the way you want it to be and then just move it. Okay, any questions about that, please leave them down below. Okay, so let's try one last thing. Let's automate our sends. Now, here it's just a scratch vocal, so we've only got a couple of reverbs going on, but let's try some fun stuff. Here's the vocal.
While you were working on your prayers.
So let's take the prayers, and let's try, he's saying prayers, so let's make it cathedral-like. So here's your plate. Here's the section.
While you were working on your prayers. While you were working on your prayers.
Let's go here to our bus 3 and 4.
On your prayers.
We have a level.
While you were working on your prayers.
So we can send more to it there.
While you were working on your prayers. While you were
so what I did is I went to my grabber tool.
While you were working
so I hit a point here and created it.
While you were
go
working
here.
on your prayers.
Let's just pick it up and grab it like this.
While you were working on your prayers. While you were working on your prayers. While you were working on your prayers.
So I'm sending a little bit more to it.
On your prayers.
There's not much going on there, so now what I'm going to do is highlight a similar area here on my plate.
On your prayers. While you were working on your prayers.
And grab.
While you were working on your prayers.
There you
While
go.
you were working on your prayers. While you were working on your prayers.
Now my tiled room and my plate are grouped together, so both the reverbs are coming up. So let's have a listen, see what we created.
While you were working on your prayers.
Cool. It's nice. It's just, you know, prayers, a little bit of extra reverb, cathedral-like. So that's basic send automation. So you see I went to my bus 3 and 4, which is up here. So if I hit bus 3 and 4 here, watch it, you'll see the automation working.
While you were working on your prayers.
Great. So that is literally selected in the same place as our other automation. So we're starting off in waveform. We'll do it one more time. We go down to bus send 3 and 4. We hit level. So let's try something else. Let's set up a delay. So I'm going to create a new auxiliary. So Shift, Command, N. Then I go Command, Stereo, using the arrow key to the right-hand side of your keyboard. I used the right-hand arrow, and that created a stereo one. Now Command, go down, auxiliary input. Now just hit Return to create. Let's put it into solo safe. Let's call it Vox Delay. Let's just choose a generic DigiDesign Avid delay. What do they have here? Medium delay. Okay, so stereo delay. So 1 set to eighths, So we're setting one at 16ths and one at 8ths. Let us now set the input to a bus, say 81, 82. Okay, so now let's create a bus send from Pro Tools. We're going to use the bus I just created, 81, 82. Okay, and now let's find it here. Here's 81, 82. Let's go to pan. Let's highlight a section here. Let's go for a whole 8th note and pan like this. Go back to my grabber tool, hit there. Go back to my trim tool, pull down. Let's just do 3 of those. And let's see what we got.
A room on your prayers. A room on your prayers.
Cool. Let's bring the feedback up.
On your prayers. A room on your prayers.
So it's just making it's hitting our delay differently left to right, and it's giving it a little bit of width. You can use ping pong delays to do that, but this is one of those things you could do with it.
Prayers. Prayers.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my actual send level here.
Prayers. Prayers.
I'm actually going to turn it down everywhere.
Prayers.
And then only turn it up on this phrase.
Prayers. 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 Prayers.
All right, nice creepy moment under the word prayers. Let's see what it sounds like.
While you were working on your prayers, our room full of fun. No.
Okay, I'm going to bring the overall verbs down. We'll listen again.
While you were working on your prayers, our room full of fun.
Cool. Okay, great. So that's some basic send automation you can do. There's plenty of fun things you can do, sending pans and stuff like that to different effects. Thanks ever so much for watching.